360 drone shots can look pretty wild, but let's be honest, a lot of them feel kind of gimmicky and you wouldn't actually use them in your videos. So how do you actually use a 360 drone like the Antigravity A1 to make your videos genuinely more cinematic and immersive? And that's exactly what this video is about. These are some of my favorite ways to use the A1 to actually make your videos better. Let's get right into it. Before we get into the actual shots, let's have a quick look at the settings to ensure you get the best quality this drone can offer. To get that, shoot in 8K as you want maximum resolution to reframe the shots later in the edit. The frame rate depends on what you usually shoot on your other cameras, so for me it's 24p. Then set the mode to Pro, change the shutter speed to automatic as there are currently no ND filters available. The ISO to 100 to prevent noise and the EV compensation value to -0.7 or even lower if you intend to film a lot into the sun. That makes the image a bit darker, which prevents highlights from clipping and leads to an overall richer image. And you also want to set the encoding format to H.265 and bitrate to high because that gives you the most data to work with, so essentially a better quality. In your image adjustment settings, adjust all three settings except for saturation completely to the left. This will give you a bit more dynamic range, and you also don't want the sharpness to be baked in, as you can't remove it later if it looks digitally sharp, but you can always add more sharpening in post if it's not sharp enough. That's for the settings. I would say it's time to get some shots. The first shot is one of those moves that look way harder than they actually are. To do so, you have to fly forward through a gap. I know that's scary, but it's actually very easy with that motion controller. Like, even beginners can do it after a few flights to get some experience with this drone. So that's simple, and it stays simple, because in the edit you just have to spin the camera 180 degrees so it reads as if you're flying backward through it, because the A1 captures everything around it, so the flight direction doesn't really matter and you simply choose the camera direction in post. And that does not only count for fly-through shots, but also for general pullback ones. Like 10 years ago, I crashed my drone during a shot like this one here, because I had to fly backward away from it, where it's easy to navigate in the wrong direction, but with the A1, no problem. You just fly forward and reframe the shot backward in post. Because it's so easy, you've likely seen such shots a lot recently, but what's not being done a lot is sideways fly-throughs, and they're so cool. They work the exact same way. You fly straight through a gap, rotate the camera angle 90 degrees in post instead of 180, and done. It looks like you flew through a gap sideways. This is almost impossible to do with a normal drone, because you don't see where you fly when you fly sideways. The next one is not really a shot idea or so, but rather a little advantage of 360 drones. Usually you only get one shot at a time with a traditional drone, but now with the A1 I can simply record one shot, but essentially get 5 different ones in the edit: forward, backward, downward, left and right. You just fly once and you can pull all of them in the edit. This is not something you need all the time, but let's say you film your travels looking in one direction, but then you notice another direction was actually better. You already got the shot. And oftentimes you only notice a better shot after the fact when you edit the video, so this is actually huge. Now, being able to choose the framing in post isn't the only advantage of a 360 drone. Drones like the A1 also shine when you're simply flying forward through tight spaces thanks to the ultra-wide field of view. Let's take a look at this shot I captured with the 28mm equivalent camera on the Mavic 4 Pro. As you can see, 28mm isn't just quite wide enough, it doesn't really emphasize the forward motion. Now compare that to the same type of shot from the A1. The much wider field of view makes the movement feel faster and gives you a much stronger sense of speed and motion. So whenever you're flying through tight spaces, even if you're just flying straight forward, a 360 drone will often produce the more dynamic looking shot simply because of that much wider field of view. One of my favorite use cases for 360 footage is actually transitions, and the cool thing is you don't even have to plan them while you're shooting. Just film whatever you want, and then in the edit you animate the camera to whatever looks the same in the next shot, put that next shot behind it in the timeline, start an animation from the part that looks similar, drop a crossfade in between if needed, and suddenly you have a clean transition you never had to think about on the shooting location. And that's what makes it so good. Like 360 footage gives you transition options after the fact, so you don't have to commit to a transition idea before or during the shoot, as you would usually have to with other cameras and drones. Last one, and probably the most fun, are time lapses with the A1, because you can capture time lapses that would simply not be possible with other drones. I shot 2 time lapses on my recent trip, and first, the aspect of being able to choose 2 different angles or more after the fact is already huge, because I can show both the place where I stay and the landscape in 2 different shots. That makes such a big difference for vlogging, because with traditional drones you would only be able to capture 1 angle. And also simply the fact that it's very easy to animate time lapses in the edit gives you so much flexibility. Like, let's be honest, I would usually not even think of the kind of camera movement that you see now with a normal drone, because you would have to set complicated waypoints and ensure that the drone rotates perfectly and all that, while you don't even see what's actually going on in the sky. So it's always a hit or miss. With the Antigravity A1, you just shoot 1 time lapse and then you can play around later, and you will come up with animations and angles you would have likely never shot otherwise. To shoot time lapses with the A1, you have to set up a sky path first. So you fly to various points that you want to cover in your time lapse and set them as waypoints. Then you save that sky path you've created, ideally with very slow settings. Then you switch from video to time lapse mode, open the sky path and start it. The drone will handle the rest from there, so taking time lapses is actually quite easy with this drone. The editing is pretty much the same as if you would edit a normal video. I personally prefer to just export the 360 video files from the Antigravity Studio app and do the actual editing in Final Cut Pro or DaVinci Resolve, but you can also do a lot of the edits in the Studio app directly. I just prefer Final Cut Pro and DaVinci Resolve because things like speed ramping and color grading are so much more flexible there. Now, to wrap it up, like with 360 cameras, the Antigravity A1 opens creative shots that wouldn't otherwise be possible, especially if you're a solo shooter. The trick is simply to fly them a lot and train your brain to think about how each shot will be edited later, because it's more complicated than a normal drone, but you get way more out of every flight. Aside from that, I don't see the A1 as an actual competitor to other drones, because it doesn't replace my Mavic 4 Pro or so. They are just different tools for different kinds of shots. The A1 is also genuinely more fun to fly because you're in the air looking around just by moving your head, kind of like FPV plus head tracking, and it's also a lot lighter. So it's an awesome drone, but if you want my full honest verdict on whether the A1 is worth buying in 2026, that's in this video here in the corner. There we go in depth about it. So watch that and let me know in the comments what kinds of shots and features interest you the most about 360 drones like the A1.